Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Tim Matthews, with my co host, Mo, the Powerful Woman Parks. Yeah, how you
Hey,
doing?
good. How are you?
I'm great. We had Jake on before, and Jake, the Powerful Man Peterson, and Mo, the Powerful Woman Parks. They just go so well. It sounds like a wrestling duo.
Mhm.
You could do a tag team and fight people.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of like superhero esque.
You don't get to hear the powerful woman a lot around here because, it's just powerful man. So it's
Not
fun.
yet. Not yet. Um, awesome. So, you ready to dive in?
Yeah.
Awesome. So, there's something, excuse me, I want to bring to the table. And you can obviously relate to this because you're in this situation and you navigate it really well. Obviously, there's like anyone, there's bumps and there's course corrections along the way.
Mhm.
And you still navigate it really well and better than most other people do, in my experience. And it comes from a situation that one of the people on the team shared, how she's speaking with some men lately, and they're kind of saying, yeah, but you don't get it. My situation is different. I am the one that stays at home. I am the homemaker and I make less money than my wife. So I want to talk a little bit about the dynamic because their situation isn't different. A lot of the guys in that position fall into the trap of being a bit of a beta usually, and that can push the woman further into our masculine, and it can be disempowering for both people. So let's talk a little bit about that dynamic, and then what people can do when they're in it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think for just a woman in this world, that when we enter kind of the workplace or when we enter, yeah, I mean, there's just this push that we have to kind of bring out these more masculine traits, right? We have to have dominant, assertiveness, aggressiveness, because in history, we've kind of been ignored. And so now there's this like overpull of feeling like, man, we have to do this to feel in charge, to feel this. And that's great. And all those things create very powerful women. And I'm so behind that. And also, when I find myself going home in that state, it typically doesn't work out because I find myself being the boss of the home and telling my children what to do. And then my husband just is another child. So there has to be something that kind of shifts in that space. And we've managed to like be able at times, not always, definitely have a lot of failure in this area as well. We've managed to find strategies that help us kind of switch back in, because the reality is my husband is a leader and he does a really good job at it. Um, and I don't see my power dynamic in the workplace as, something that needs to be in the home. Sorry, I feel like I rambled there, but do you have
No,
any
you did.
questions that I can
Yeah,
answer?
made total sense. Yeah, I firmly believe that regardless of how dominant the woman is in the workplace, even the most assertive woman in the workplace wants to come home and be able to surrender into the arms of a guy that gets her and helps her to relax and just shifts. Would you agree?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that oh, a woman wants to feel that dominant and like that peace at work. But when she comes home, she's taking care of all the stuff at work. She doesn't want to keep taking care of everything in the home too. Like there is a sense of like, I'm taking care of my own emotions. So please take care of yours. And
Hmm.
like, I don't want there to be boundaries overlapping there. Sort of like the codependency that we talked about on the other podcast.
Yeah. So obviously, if there's a powerful woman, let's say, who's used to being assertive at work or whatever she has to do in the workplace in order to progress or influence or whatever it is, then what kind of man do you think it takes in order to honestly, the word that came to mind is, it might sound a little bit bad, but tame that wild femininity or that wild woman, if you will, when she walks in through the door? What are some of those attributes or qualities?
That wording, yes. I would say, what are ways that you can make her feel safe so that she comes out of that more masculine frame and can fall into that more like
Mhm.
playful, fun, empathetic, compassionate piece. And I think it's the same thing that you do if you're walking in the door as a man coming home from work, and that's why it's not different, because it's
Energy.
role. Yeah, it's energy. And so what my husband does is, as soon as I walk in the door, he's basically using the hidden motives. Like, he's, tell me about your day. Anything else? Anything else? What else? Like, and he's just walking me through my day. And it's so helpful. And I don't realize that I need it, but it does help me sort of come down off of that. And then, in addition to that, he's created a space for me to not feel like I have to work when I get home, and continually being very helpful in saying, like, this is the space for our family. This isn't the space
Hmm.
for work. Because if I continue in my work, then I'm snapping at my kids, I'm snapping at my
Hmm.
husband. And so those are a couple of things that I think we've done to create that balance and flow.
Random question. Do you like taking a bath?
Yes.
So, what would it be like for you if by the time you finished work, you walked in through the door and the bath was run and maybe there was some candles around it, maybe not, maybe there was some scents, maybe not. But when you walked in through the door, the first thing that your husband did was said, "Right, the bath's run. Go upstairs, take a bath, come down when you're done."
Yeah. The action and gesture, I'd feel like, man, that's so awesome. But I think the internal guilt that a lot of wives and moms feel is that, like, I've been gone all day now, like, that'll take more time for my kids. But if I can get out of my head, and if there's something like said on
Exactly.
the front end of, like, don't worry about the kids, don't worry about dinner, just you can
Yep.
be and just stay as long as you want. And just this invitation to let go of that guilt and shame would feel like I could enjoy the bath instead of just doing the bath.
Exactly. Because, for example, the bath is going to get you out of your head back into your body. So that's moving more from the masculine into the feminine. And
Yeah.
then the use of the hidden motives technique would probably be needed a little bit less, I'd imagine, because your mood would just shift, your energy would calm. You may not even want to talk about your day by that point. You may just want to talk about the kids and what he's been up to and what the family's been doing. And maybe you share a little bit about your day too. Maybe not. But I think that shift, that ability of the guy to take control of the situation and do something that is going to shift the mood of the woman and bring her back into her feminine without it needing to involve words or talking or whatever, um, is a very uh, p- powerful tool, really, to be able to use.
Yeah. I think one of the coolest things that I've seen that I didn't know, I think until you just said it, is when I walk in and my husband has music on that he's dancing to with the kids, or he's like, having fun with the kids on the ground, like in those positions, it feels so disarming, because it feels
Hmm.
like my kids were taken care of. Or
Hmm.
even if, like, this doesn't have to be a stay-at-home dad, even if he's home before the wife, or if he feels like, he doesn't work as much as the wife, or he picks the kids up from school instead of her, like, just this attitude of, I trust the playfulness that my husband has with my kids, or the music, because that's another thing to bring women into their feminine, is just like
Hmm.
having kids playfully dance. Like, any sort of play really puts me back into that more feminine stance as well.
Awesome. So you said a bath, you said play, you said music. What
Mhm.
else works for you? And obviously this may work for other women too. So if guys are listening to this and they are the stay-at-home dad, and the wife's gonna come in from work tonight, here are a few ideas that obviously we've mentioned so far. What are a few more?
Um, I think having the night planned, like, you walk in, you'd be like, "Hey, we're so excited you're here." I think what we're thinking, what we are going to do is, we're gonna have like 10 more minutes of play. I have dinner in the oven. When that comes out, we'll eat. I'll start getting the kids to bed around 7. Or if you don't have kids, then it's just like, "Hey, dinner's ready." Just like kind of playing out the plan for when you get home, because I think there's this
Hmm.
tension as mom wife of, I have to come home and I do the things. Now, some
Hmm.
people already have a routine, and if you have a routine, then stick with it. Don't change if it is working. But yeah, just having some sort of plan again fills that, like, safety, the security of, like, I can rely on him to kind of plan, and he does. It's the leadership,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. What if you came in and the bath was run, told to go upstairs, the kids are playing, and up there's a little note of what the plan is going to be?
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, you can relax. The plan's taken care of. Um, so let's flip the script a little bit. So there are a few ideas of how to obviously get the woman back into her feminine, out of the masculine. And in the process, the guy then I say maintains the frame. He takes control of the frame. When the woman walks into the house, she then collapses into his frame, which is important. But let's flip the script a little bit. How does the man, in your opinion, who is the stay-at-home dad, perform that role in a way where he maintains the masculinity and doesn't fall into femininity?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's definitely like traits and aspects of femininity that kind of have to come out towards kids, because I think there's this theory that like kids under the age of 8 have more feminine traits and respond better to feminine traits. It makes them all feel safe, and then they start to develop that more like core energy as that kind of shifts into, gender specific. But throughout the day, just maintaining that empathetic frame towards kids and allowing them to feel safe doesn't necessarily mean you have to come out of your masculine, right? It means
Mhm.
you're implementing more feminine traits, but it doesn't mean you're coming out of your masculine. I think what my husband does during the day is he fills his cup. Like he makes sure that he's going to a workout, which means the kids are in the workout daycare for a couple hours. And he makes sure that if he needs to go to cryotherapy or if he needs some time off, he's taking it so that he can stabilize emotionally throughout the day. And he can, and this is only after the alpha reset that he done this. He would have just pent up and built and built and built and then kind of exploded before throughout the day. But to stay in that more masculine, self-assured, confident frame, it was definitely a lot of self-work that had to kind of engage, when a lot of guys don't even know what even that means, or like what that would look like for them.
Yeah, for sure. So you said about self care. I mean, helps him to maintain a masculine frame, being empathic and nurturing, which I guess is obviously vulnerability too. For a guy to be able to show that side of himself to kids or to whoever,
Mhm.
it's endearing when a woman sees a guy doing that, right?
Yeah.
Which again creates polarity because he's not, like you said, he's not losing his masculine edge by doing that. When a
Mhm.
woman sees it or hears of it or witnesses it, then it definitely pulls her further into her feminine.
Yeah.
So what else? What else does your husband do, or what else can the guys do to maintain their masculinity whilst being the guy that is a stay-at-home dad or the homemaker?
I mean, I think that you'd be better suited to answer this question, and ways that kind of you stay in, because a lot of it is around like filling your cup, but also I think around just like planning and management, like making sure that you're doing things that are in the homes, because you can't lead the home if you don't know the home. Like
Hmm.
you knowing where the home's at, knowing where the people in the home are at, and kind of keeping that evaluation process going like on a weekly basis. Like, what as a family have we done that are wins? What are some,
Hmm.
lessons that we've learned in the past week? What are some improvements? Just some like evaluating of the family and making sure that you're creating goals for the family. I think a lot of those things are like, I'm holding the family, and they can keep you feeling that masculine energy, like just to have that space where you know where your family's going, where you are, and where you want to be.
I love it. That structure. Yeah, it's a very masculine thing to provide. And the
Mhm.
other angle here that we said in the beginning, I'm just rereading the post that someone on the team wrote, is the scenario where they're making less money than the wife. In my opinion, there's no reason to lose your masculine edge or masculinity if your wife is making more money than you. There's no reason whatsoever. Now, obviously, that may tailor into what we were talking about at the beginning. If the wife's making more money, you might assume that she's maybe in a more high powered position. Maybe, maybe not, right? You could have a guy that's, for example, in construction, that's a very physical job that requires him to be very masculine, for example. Yeah, he could make less money than his wife. So, but let's assume for this particular instance, when guys say, "Hey, you don't get my situation is different. I earn less than my wife. She's a main breadwinner. I haven't done what most guys do and gone chasing the career. And I remember talking to a guy that said this. I haven't done what most guys do and gone and chased the career in order to make money and fill a void. In fact, I've done quite the opposite. I've got a good job. I enjoy it. I haven't chased any promotions though, and I'm home for the kids. I make it home for the kids every day. When my
Mm,
wife comes home, she's the one that usually opens a laptop and carries on working. How do I get her attention? How do I bridge the gap? How do I? And for him, it didn't need to come from his career. He'd also let his fitness go. He'd fallen out of love with his passions, with his hobbies. He'd really let, which obviously you're talking about with your husband, he hasn't done, but this guy had really let that side of him go. So his a lot of his
mm,
identity was coming, and a lot of his value was coming from the kids. And he'd lost touch with himself, which obviously to his wife, that wasn't the woman or the guy that she fell in love with. There was something there that she liked about him, his charisma, his humor, his energy, his fitness, whatever it was. It doesn't have to translate to money. But again, if the guys are looking at it from that way and they're getting insecure because the wife makes more money than they do, then that can also go into the idea of, well, it's value, right? It's a self image. Hey, if I'm not making as much money and the self image being about money, then I'm not good enough.
yeah,
But in reality, if you're feeling that way, the likelihood is money is just a symptom and you're feeling inadequate, be it in yourself or the relationship, for other reasons.
yeah,
Um, and that's then showing up in the fact that you are letting yourself go. You may be eating a little bit too much. You maybe stopped working out. You don't have any hobbies. You don't hang out with any guys. You don't do anything. You've kind of become a guy that's just a bit neutral, really. You're not masculine. You're not feminine. You've just become kind of neutralized.
yeah. Yeah, I think as if a guy gets in his head, he's dead. And if that's a thing, like if money's a thing, like oh, I make less than her, it's because you're making it a thing. Like
Hmm.
it's not a real thing. Or, I mean, say in the rare case that she actually um controls or demands the money. I think the bigger question to deal with there isn't why didn't she let me have the money? It's why is she like what's going on in
Why doesn't
me?
she trust me?
Yeah. And I think that there's a piece there of again that safety you were saying it's a symptom of something else in the relationship, and it typically is.
So let's say there's people listening to this and resonate. I mean, we've mentioned a lot. In your opinion, if there's a guy listening to this right now, he stays at home, his wife is the main breadwinner, and he's struggling with keeping the intimacy because his wife is so far in her masculine.
Mm.
What are three things he could do right now to shift the balance of those scales?
Yeah, I mean, I think we mentioned a couple of them, but to shift one, it's self work. Like I am like every time you're going to ask me a principle, it's always going to start there. Like evaluating who you are, where you are, and why you're there. Continuing to ask the question around like how am I choosing to grow myself? How am I choosing to look at me and fill my cup, but also grow as an individual and as a person? Because more often than not, when I talk to other women who kind of stay in their masculine, it's because they don't trust him to take care of himself. And that's a big push away because it's like I'm not taking care of another kid after either taking care of my kids or after working a full day. So got to be taking care of yourself, got to be growing, got to be filling your tank, not in an arrogant way either. Can't be like, well, I'm doing this so that she does da, 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 da. No, you're doing it because you're doing it for you. So that's the first piece. Second piece to obviously pull her out of that is what we've kind of already talked about: music, dancing, play. Those are three things that kind of, for me, and I think for most women, kind of pull us out of that more masculine state. Even if, like, it's just this concept of the work can wait. Like in those spaces, the work can wait. Like I can put my phone down. Telling her to stop being that masculine, like, energy, or telling her to put her laptop away or telling her to put her phone away. You're just dealing with the symptoms of the problem. You're not actually dealing with the root. So, and because she genuinely at that moment feels that's important. And that's it, just use it as an indicator, not a dictator of the relationship. It indicates where you're at. It doesn't dictate where you're at. Use it as data, use it as information. And then I think the last piece, um, um, yeah, I don't know. Do you have one?
The last piece you spoke about working on yourself. You've spoken about shifting her state. Um, do you know what? No, I mean, working on yourself encompasses so much, right?
Oh,
Um,
that's
and
fair. I could have broken that
yeah,
down.
it encompasses so much from be your fitness. Just be a man who's interesting, which will come from working on yourself. Because some guys can feel like they lose a part of themselves, and so can women too, when they stay at home and look after the kids, right? And they lose touch with their hobbies, their interests. And it can sometimes mean it's kind of tough to find things to talk about or bring anything to the table. So part of working on yourself is just to be an interesting guy. Make sure you stay in touch with your hobbies. Make sure you prioritize hanging out with other guys and guy time. Make sure you still do all the things you would do if you were working or when you did work, or take inventory of what you were like when you guys first got together. Maybe even ask your wife, hey, why are we not why are you with me? Because that's a bit of a different question, but what was it about me that attracted you to me in the early days? What was it? I'm curious. You may already know the answer to that question, but you may also be surprised by the answer to that question. When I asked Amelia, I thought she was going to say, the lifestyle you've provided for us, or you drive, or this, or that. And she just said, because you make me laugh. I was like, wow, that's it. I make you laugh. But I didn't realize, right? So, but if you know that, then you can bring that to the table, right? When partner finishes work, make a laugh, right? Whatever it is that's relevant for you. So, appreciate you jumping on and sharing a little bit of your experience. It's always helpful for the men. I know they love hearing from you. So, yeah, I appreciate everything that you do.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Right, guys. So, as we always say, at the moment of insight, take massive action. If you've not checked out the other podcasts that Mo has done, go and check those out. We have got a woman's take on what it means for a man to lead, and a woman's take on what it means for a man to take responsibility. I think they're the titles of those two. But either way, go to the website, hit the search bar, just Google a woman's take, and they'll come up. And again, at the moment of insight, take massive action. Until next time, have an amazing day.